What do you think?
I think we're dead meat. Real dead meat.
You're dead meat!
Go ahead and laugh, you guys. If I ever find a little bastards that did this, they're dead meat.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I like your background.
Thanks, man. I just had it installed in the bedroom of my home. We had a new set installed for both my show and these interviews, so that's what we got going.
It looks like every room in my house.
Yeah, I figured as much. Are you guys in your house right now, or are you on a
We're in
set?
Tom's basement.
This is my basement. You see all the Universal bus back there and Frankenstein and yeah.
It's great to meet you guys because on my channel Dead Meat, we always like to talk about practical effects and what goes into them and the details and everything.
We're huge fans of Dead Meat.
Oh, thank you.
We've literally called Tom Gore Daddy because of you.
No.
We made him a coffee mug at the shop that says Gore Daddy. So it's only Tom's cup because of you. James coined the phrase Gore Daddy because we watch Kill Count.
Tom Savini, who personally designed Little Swamp Boy Jason.
I created the monster, and I get to kill him.
Let's see what Gore Daddy brought home for this false finale and get to the kills.
We are huge fans at the shop. So congratulations to you and Chelsea on your marriage.
Thank you so much, Jason. That's great to hear. In fact, Chelsea would be with me if I weren't still quarantining from her. But yeah, actually, Tom, you were in one of the very first videos I put on my channel. It was at Monsterpalooza. I was going around talking to people, and you agreed to talk to me for just a quick minute, even though I was a nobody back then. And I still remember when we finished the quick little interview, you said, good luck with the channel. And now 5 years later, it's my job. And I always think back to that. So thank you, Tom.
Well, I just came from Monsterpalooza last weekend.
Yep, and I was supposed to be there with the table and then tested positive the day of. So that, at least I didn't bring it there.
Mine was a parting gift from WrestleMania this year, so.
Yeah, right. I know, I don't know if you noticed, I got my Fiend shirt on.
Oh, he's got Brave Lantern.
So repping the mask that you guys designed. When I heard that the Fiend's mask was designed by your shop, it made sense because it was so cool. I was actually at SummerSlam when he premiered. And then when I heard that you guys designed the mask for this movie, also makes a lot of sense because I was just thinking about how with a lot of horror movies nowadays, you think almost that we've reached the limit of what masks can do because you've already got the super simple one with Michael Myers or the iconic hockey mask with Jason. And when you see those things from the 80s repeatedly today, it's do we have any new iconic looks? But I think that the grabber in the Black Phone is such a good design and that it will go down alongside those other ones.
I was surprised by the popularity of just the poster because it's just a mask,
Yeah.
But it must be because new generations or whatever, this is totally unique to them. Because every movie is machete, hatchet, makeups, and horrible faces and stuff. And this is just a mask with a smile on it. So it proves that sometimes it's the simple things that catch on. All we know about is the mask we created. I don't know what Ethan Hawke has done with it. But what a challenge that is for an actor to wear a mask and still come across as scary. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 100%.
I actually had the chance to see it right before its release date was moved to the summer release, which I think was a good call because I think it deserves a bigger summer release. And yeah, it was phenomenal. I wanted to go into detail about exactly how the mask was made. I was just reading that, Tom, you were the one who came up with the initial design and you gave that to Scott Derrickson?
It was Scott Derrickson who contributed to the design. The credit's going to say, designed and created by Tom Savini and Jason Baker. Designed by me, created by him. It was me and Scott Derrickson and his brother-in-law, Levi Simpson, who was a sketch artist. And back and forth with Scott and, suggesting things from just the research we did was circus masks, Italian half mask, things like that. The movie Mr. Sardonicus with a big smile, the man who laughs, and horns. It had to have horns because it's going to be evil, So just back and forth with Scott Derrickson, we came up with the design, and then he created it based on those designs.
Yeah, so what went into the actual creation process? Because I know that, there are all different kinds of foams that can be used. What was the consideration for Ethan? Because I don't know if he's ever worn a mask throughout a movie before. Was that something you had to consider as how to allow him to continue to do his craft?
Yeah, that was one of the big things we talked with Scott, and one of the big things that Scott wanted was, he was like, we have to see Ethan's eyes. No matter what it is, no matter what we do, you got to be able to see his eyes, because if you don't, there's no point to having Ethan play the role, because how many people have played Jason, Michael, over the years?
It's the Dread Pirate Roberts syndrome.
You can just kind of throw somebody
else just,
We made him out of a light, durable resin fiberglass hybrid, and so that way, and we just made sure that Ethan was able to breathe and they're comfortable. They're all lined with like padded felt and everything. So, you know, because it's like your average film set day is 14 hours a day. Someone's going to be taking this on and off for 14 hours. You want to make sure it's the most comfortable thing humanly possible.
They actually made a cast of Ethan Hawke's head to sculpt the mask on.
Like for the interior of the mask to make it more comfortable?
We did a life cast, and then that way we knew it would fit him exactly.
And so the eyes would be in the right place and plenty of space around them.
Does that mean he had to do the submerged in plaster thing with the straws out of his nose?
No straw. We don't use straws in the nose anymore because it distorts the nose.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But yeah, we had to do the whole slime bucket over the head thing. So
I've always wanted to do that, even though it does sound kind of miserable. Like, how long of a process is that for them?
20 minutes.
Oh, okay.
If you're good at it, it's like 20 minutes.
The new silicone we're using now kicks up in like 10, so it's even faster.
Wow, I'm so used to looking at the behind the scenes stuff for like 80s horror movies where it's like, oh, we had to plaster their head for an hour and they just had to, breathe through the straws. It sounded miserable.
The plaster is the backing for something softer that goes on the face. Back then it was alginate, and like he said, today it's silicone. But you have to have a plaster backing so it keeps its form.
But also the beautiful part about using the silicone is because alginate starts to shrink the moment it cures. With the silicone it doesn't, so we were actually able to go do Ethan's life cast in his office in New York and then bring it back here to our studio in Pittsburgh and then start running the copies.
Did you put a straw in his mouth?
No.
You didn't? Okay.
No.
But that would have worked because we wouldn't have needed his actual features to sculpt like appliances on.
Yeah, but when you put the straw on, it elongates the jaw, so we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And then after the first day of shooting where Ethan wore the mask, were there any adjustments that had to be made? Put it on and
we were actually never on set. What we did was we made all the masks, set photos, videos, did test photos, test footage and everything in our studio here in Pittsburgh, sent it to Scott, everybody. They approved it, took it, and then once they approved it, we drove it back to New York.
Because he hand-delivered the mask.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my next question. Do you trust it in the mail for something that valuable?
No, FedEx has burned us way too many times to...
Oh, yeah.
So
how many copies of the mask did you make for continuity purposes?
We ended up making almost 40.
Oh, wow.
Well, because of COVID restrictions and everything. So we made Ethan's whole hero set, which I believe was almost 12 or 15 alone. So there's variations, like there's the full mask, the half masks. There was a few stunt masks that were made out of latex for, like for him when he's doing like the chase scene and stuff and everything. We had to make a few prop ones and like gag ones that broke and everything for obvious scenes, trying not to give away too many things.
Didn't stunt people have to have their own masks?
Yeah.
That was my next question, yeah.
Yeah, that we had to make ones for the stunt people, and then we had to make a backup copy of all the heroes, and then we had to make it because of COVID, we couldn't let Ethan and the photo double share the same mask because he'd be breathing on it, whole cross-contamination thing. So then we had to make a whole separate set for the photo double. And then we made one for one specific scene that had magnets in it so he could pull it apart.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So I think altogether we ended up making like 43 or 45.
Because the masks had seams in them that made it look like they came apart, but they really didn't, except for the special one.
Yeah.
And is that special one, doesn't he swap out his expression with the mask?
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was a really cool addition to the character, how it wasn't just like a uniform look. I don't know. It reminded me of almost the tragedy and comedy masks.
Exactly. That's what they were. The commedia masks. There was the happy, there was the frowning, and then the one was blank.
You get a lot of configurations, which is great to see the variety of the work and like the details of the mask. I was surprised that you're saying that most of the masks didn't actually remove, but it makes sense.
But that had to add to the creepiness of his character, that he actually, as a character, he actually went through the trouble of creating top, bottom, full. The smiling one was to entice them. The fun one was when he was angry. So he actually went to the trouble to do that. Now that's pretty creepy. It adds to the character without the script.
Do you guys ever watch horror movies, and if there's a guy with a mask or something, are you ever like, this guy wouldn't have been able to make that mask? It's way too elaborate.
That was part of the consideration.
Oh, okay.
One of the things was they wanted it to look like he had found it and possibly tried to like fix it. Like, I think one of the things that we talked about is that it was definitely old. He wanted elements of antique, of porcelain, of brokenness, of crackness. So we were like, well, if the movie takes place, say hypothetically this thing's 80 to 100 years old and the movie takes place in the 1970s, that would put it in the 1870s. So, we kind of did the math and looked up a lot of reference photos of like old porcelains. And then again, we were doing all this during COVID. So at little like antique stores we could actually get to and go and take photographs of like weird, creepy old porcelain dolls and, find all those reference photos and stuff like that. We all like brought into and just gave it, and also gave it a look of like he had tried to fix fix it himself with limited artistic ability.
Well, when you saw the movie, there must have been some close-ups on the mask.
Oh, yeah.
Did it look old? Did it look aged? Did it look?
Yeah, it looks well worn in a great way. Like, it wasn't created for a movie. It's
Right.
like you said, it's something that character was able to find and modify himself. Jason, you've been doing this for at least 10 years, right?
Yeah, about 10, almost 15 now.
How did you hook up with Tom?
He won me in a card game.
Oh, what card game?
No, he went to my school.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I found out about Tom's school, came out here, didn't really have any plans of working with Tom. I bounced around, worked for a few years, ended up back here in Pittsburgh, ran into Tom at a local nerd store called Ides, and he was like, hey, I need some help with some stuff. It was actually for Triple H's Gold Crown for WrestleMania 30.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, yeah, I'll work, and then I'll move to LA in a few weeks. And it's been 12 years later, and I'm still here. So.
Oh, so you've lived in Pittsburgh that whole time?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
When I first started working with Tom, I was like, all right, this is the last one. All right, needs one more. All right, and then I'll go.
Oh, but now he has a studio called Colossum Studios. He has a whole space.
Oh, when did that open?
We opened that about 2 years ago. So, I always joke about how I'm like a Godfather 3 Tom. He thought he was out, and I pulled him back in.
They keep pulling me back.
So now, what we do is I just tell Tom all the time, I'm like, I don't need your hands. I just need your brain. Like, come and hang out and let us pick your brain, and we'll get it all done, and we'll go from there. So it's a win-win for everybody.
They do all the work.
Yeah, so you help with like conceptualizing and design, and then Jason, at this point, is it mostly you doing the physical processes?
Yeah, Tom's the Santa Claus. We're the Christmas elves.
Oh, okay, that's great.
And I'm okay with that.
And Tom, you've been in Pittsburgh this whole time too, living there?
This is the house I was born and raised in. I've been here 75 years.
Oh my God, that's amazing. I knew that you and Romero were from Pittsburgh because I had family in Johnstown, so we would frequently visit Western Pennsylvania, and I love that. I mean, we're from Michigan, so just the Midwest Rust Belt are kind of my people, but I hadn't realized that you'd stayed there that whole time. That's incredible.
Well, I've worked all over the world, but I always come home to Pittsburgh.
In this little room here is where they did Day of the Dead and Creepshow, and
I had 6 guys working in this room.
Oh my
creating
God.
the appliances for Day of the Dead until we actually moved to the location.
Man, Day of the Dead, I think, is one of the most underrated and unsung movies and showcases of practical effects. Those effects are gnarly.
I used to say that Day of the Dead was my masterpiece, but the more I think of it, it would have to be Creepshow.
Oh, okay.
Creepshow was 5 little movies, I'd never done an animatronic creature before, Fluffy, the crate creature. And, Nate's corpse coming out of the ground. I mean, Day of the Dead might be my splatter masterpiece, but I think the splatter masterpiece is what Rob Bottin did in The Thing. But Day of the Dead was my splatter masterpiece. Creepshow was my creature makeup masterpiece.
Like more variety. What about you, Jason? Do you have a masterpiece or also a favorite of someone else's work?
I mean, I don't think we got enough time for that
No,
list. Just turn around, all of it.
Yeah, right. Tom, obviously you've been doing this for a very long time, at least going back to Dawn of the Dead, if not before that. I know you were supposed to do effects on Night of the Living Dead, but...
the original, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
I was in Vietnam when he made
Vietnam got in the way. Yep, that pesky little thing. In all that time, what are some of the most amazing and beneficial technological advances that have made your job easier?
CGI. The
electricity.
In my case, electricity, running water. The job is still the same. The work is still the same. It's just the materials that change. And I jokingly said CGI because, I love it when it's done well, but, I don't think they've mastered some things yet. People tend to think if it's impossible, it's CGI. Nicotero did this great makeup on the baseball player in Land of the Dead, and everybody thought it was CGI. But it was a great makeup, So if it's impossible, they think it's CGI. But the best effects are a combination of CGI and practical. I wish I had CGI when I was trying to hide an edge. Mostly it's an economical decision because if I had to redo tearing Joe Pilato in half in Day of the Dead, we're talking maybe 6 hours to redo that, If the blood was CGI, there's no cleanup. You could probably do it a lot quicker.
Saying with technology and the internet and everything, I'm like, I don't know how we would have accomplished doing the black phone without the internet and FaceTime and Zoom. And
well, we're not in the position to do a laser 3D printing of an actor, scan the actor, and K&B does that. They don't cast faces anymore. They'll do a scan of you and reproduce it on the laser printer in plastic and then work from that.
Oh, wow. Do you think the effects are just as good, like the end result?
Yeah, absolutely. And probably even better,
Damn,
like there was not
amazing.
The silicone flashing that exists today. When I was doing it, it was foam latex flashing, a little harder to hide hide the edge. Now the edge just disappears without even melting it sometimes. So that makes it easier. There's been a lot of changes material-wise.
I wish I could sit here and talk all day with you guys, but I think that's just about my time with you. It was fantastic talking to you guys about practical effects in general and this mask, the Grabber's mask in the black phone. It's a really great movie. I can't wait for you guys to see it.
Good luck with your show.
Oh man, that just transported me back 5 years. Thank you so much, Tom.
The Gordon himself.
I'm so glad Gordaddy caught on. I felt gross saying it, but you know what? It worked.
It's great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, James.
Thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it. Hey, guys. Nice to meet you. Nice to talk to you today.
Good to see you.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, thank you. I had the opportunity to see the movie earlier this year, right before its release date was pushed to the summer, which I think was a good call, and I absolutely loved it. It was phenomenal. I can't wait for more people to see it.
Well, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, and Ethan, I know that for a while you were reluctant to play villains because you said you didn't want people to start thinking of you as a villain after that, but you decide, hey, you're in your 50s now, might as well give it a shot. Was there anything in particular about this movie or this role that made you decide to embrace being a bad guy?
Yeah, the guy right to my right.
Yeah.
You know, Sinister was a really important movie in my career. It kind of reinvigorated my love of genre movies and taught me a lot about what the horror genre can be and what a beautiful art form it really can be. And like this film, it was easy in the best sense. It was so much fun. I got so much out of it. I'm really proud of my performance in the movie. I'm proud of the movie. And I told Scott when he described the character to me, I was like, uh-oh. I was never drawn to inviting that kind of madness into my psyche. One level is you teach the audience how to see the mad you. They can't unsee it. So then you go play an actuary and they think you're the psychotic actuary.
Yeah.
You know, just because they associate the way your eyes move with that time you did that to that kid.
Anthony Hopkins has always been Lecter in everything he's played since, in some form.
It's kind of true,
It's
and
really,
I felt the same way about Jack Nicholson in The Shining. There's pre-Shining and there's post-Shining.
Yeah.
I told Scott that if Nicholson would do it for Kubrick, then I'd do it for him. What I mean is that you have to do it in a movie that's worth it.
Yeah.
And that you feel like the movie will be worth it. I think that there's something at the heart of this movie that really moves me. And also you have to, to live is to change, right? You know, it's funny, Sinister was when I was 40, and this is when I was turning 50. And it felt like, all right, it's time to turn a page and maybe start exploring other aspects of myself.
Yeah, I love that. Did you have to approach the role in a different way than usual, either in your prep work or how you even behaved on set? Like, were you more distant towards the other cast members maybe than you normally would be?
My brain works a little differently than that.
Okay.
I learned years ago, I played Macbeth. And when you play, Macbeth is like a giant meditation on madness, murder, power, greed, how it intersects with insecurity, fear of weakness. And when you do a big guided meditation like that, if you internalize all that every night, every day, it's madness inducing. And I've started trying to learn how to let all that stuff pass through, and then you feel more comfortable going to dark places because you don't have to hold on to them all the time.
So for you, it's more just when the cameras are rolling. It's not a lived-in experience or...
No, it's not about that. You can't just be when the cameras are rolling. You have to give the camera something to photograph. The camera loves something real. It loves authenticity, and it's difficult to marry that when the character is not somebody you want. Nobody sane wants to hurt children.
Yeah.
You know, that's a hard thing to let your mind. You know, if I used to, my joke, not joke, the thing I used to say is I'm my character's lawyer. Well, I would not want to be the grabber's lawyer. Right. You know, you can be John Brown's lawyer and say, well, okay, I killed some people, but this is why I did it, and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
With the grabber, I don't want to be his lawyer.
Yeah, you mentioned Sinister, obviously, movie that you guys collaborated on about a decade ago. I think that is one of the best modern horror movies, one of the scariest. I'm always singing its praises. I love what you did in that, and I love what you did in this. But this movie definitely feels very different tone-wise than Sinister. And in fact, it reminded me, obviously, of kind of Stephen King movies. And that's not a surprise since it's based on a short story by Stephen's son, Joe Hill. But Scott, I'm curious, did you intentionally emulate any other Stephen King adaptations? Did you look at any other works for inspiration?
No, it wasn't at all inspired by any other Stephen King work. It was just Joe. I love Joe's work in general. I think that Joe is a unique horror writer, and what separates him in my mind from other horror writers is I think he does gravitate toward unusually dark and bleak material and can really go down the rabbit hole of taboo subjects and that sort of thing. And knowing him personally, Joe's point of view is always a point of view of love. And Joe's philosophy of horror is that great horror is about great empathy. And so when I read The Black Phone, I thought, my God, this material get any bleaker than this? A sadistic child killer, having killed multiple other victims, has abducted one, and this is the story that takes place in the basement where these victims are held. About as grim as it gets, and yet the story has so much heart and feeling in it already. So for me, the goal was to expand the story, expand it into other characters, expand it into more victims, expand it into a narrative that worked as a feature film, but to hold on to that point of view so that the whole thing is told with empathy. And I think that the grand ambition of the movie was to not compromise the scariness or the suspense for the inclusion of humor, empathy, love, inspiration, hope, to somehow have all those things coexist at the same time. And I thought if I could pull that off, then this would be different than any film of its kind that I've seen.
It's remarkably astute to my own thoughts about the movie because, as you said, it's scary, but it's also really empathetic and I think in some ways optimistic. And so I think that you really nailed that tone of it being a dangerous tale, but also having so much heart to it that it never feels overbearing or too bleak and depressing. Even though the subject matter, like you said, is some really dark stuff, there's a thread line of hope to it, and the characters are so good. I think a big part of that is the age of the characters. They're at that age where they're starting to understand the adult world, but they're still so young that they're obviously in danger, and yet they can kind of take control of their own fate and try to fight back. So I think you got an amazing performance out of the lead kid actors, and I'm wondering what your approach was with them. Did it help that you were around-ish their age when this movie takes place? Were you able to use some of that to...
I mean, yeah, there was a lot of, personal feeling that I had about the different scenes and the material and what I wrote and everything, but, what I did is I cast it well. And starting with Mason, the thing with Mason is, he's a unicorn for his age. You just don't find child actors like him where what Mason can do that other even really talented child actors can do is you can talk to him like an adult about the emotional intention of a character. This is what happens, this is what he's feeling, this is what he's going through in this particular shot. The whole scene, but also just shot by shot. Mason knows how to hear that, receive that. Sometimes you don't have to say anything to him at all because he already understands that. But he has the ability with just his eyes, the nuance of his facial expressions, without overdoing anything, he just naturally expresses and exudes the feeling of emotionally processing the truth of every single moment, beat by beat. And as I put the movie together, I was just stunned. He doesn't miss a beat. And then with Madeline, I saw her self-tape, and it was the scene when she's talking to the police officers, and she just had the gestures down, she had the attitude down, and the joke at the end made me laugh out loud, and I thought, God, this girl's like a real spitfire, But then when it came to the whipping scene, which is so brutal, and traumatic, I just told her, you've got to get to a real state of distress in this. You've got to really be broken. You fight back, you drop the bottle, you're being defiant, but he really breaks you down. And my favorite acting moment in the whole movie, and maybe in anything I've ever done, is when Jeremy Davies, which he improv'd, makes her repeat 3 times, "My dreams are just dreams." Say it. "My dreams are just dreams." And she's sobbing. And he's like, "Say it again." And she says it even louder, and tears are literally coming down her face. She says, "My dreams are just dreams." He's like, "Say it again." And this turn happens. And she turns and she looks at him and she gets mad. And she's like, "My dreams are just dreams." And I didn't tell her to do that. That's a 9-year-old girl knowing her character, like embodying and living the truth of that moment. And it startled Jeremy. Jeremy was in the middle of that scene. I think he was startled, and it diffuses the whole situation and everything calms down and he sends him off to the other room. Can I direct a 9-year-old girl to do something like that? No. These kids have an ability to act. They really are good at what they do. I think both of them are going to have huge careers. It's a 3-hander. It's the 2 of them and Ethan, and everybody had a difficult job on this movie, but everybody stepped up and delivered.
They were incredible and honestly phenomenal work all around. So thanks so much for giving me the chance to talk to you guys. Love the movie. Can't wait for other people to see it.
Hey, thanks much.
Thank you.